Right. This is actually, of course, South Korea and the U.S. alliance and North Korea's nuclear threats. It's also a very closely watched event and topic all across the world. Therefore, much attention is being focused on this, and we are also seeing U.S. Trade Representative Wendy Cutler. Right.
A lot of the seats that were empty had the label U.S. delegates written on it, and I think those seats are filling up nicely right now. And it seems like the members of the press are standing by on the edge of their seats or on the tip of their toes, eagerly awaiting for this historic event to take place. The foreign visitors are checking in their earpieces to make sure the translations or interpretations are flowing smoothly. And it looks like the preparations are all set up, and it will be just minutes, if not seconds, until the two very important faces step up to the podium and deliver what is expected from them and much more.
Right, we're seeing South Korea's Foreign Minister Yoon Byung-se there as well. I'm sure he was with President Park Geun-hye and President Obama during their talks, at least for a part-time. And yeah, we're hearing that simultaneous interpretations will be available both in Korean and English as the joint news conference proceeds. And we're still waiting for that. And right, I mean, this is the joint news conference was supposed to happen about half an hour ago at 5:30 p.m. Korea time, but the bilateral summit, of course, had been, I suppose, lengthened, and we are still waiting for this joint news conference to happen. It's a minute past 6 p.m., and it looks like the South Korea-U.S. summit news conference will happen any minute now, but we're still waiting. And of course, in the studio, we have Dr. Bong Young-shik, a senior research fellow at the Asan Institute of Policy Studies, joining us and helping us through this summit conference.
The silence still continues at the event venue, unfortunately. People still trying to, some of them adjusting their seats, and a lot more conversation going on at the moment. They are growing a little bit nervous about how long the wait is going to be. But it's been over half an hour, and a couple of more minutes will not make much of a difference. The only difference that we have is that the two leaders will be discussing more broader subjects or focusing in one particular subject, probably something to do with North Korea in more details. That is always a good sign. And once they hash out their views,
that's right.
And once they're out on the podium, we can expect something better. I think it's sort of like baking. You know, you wait for the dough to sit and rise. You don't have to rush everything, and sometimes that can be a very positive outcome.
Right, and we are hearing reports that prior to starting their bilateral summit, President Park Geun-hye and President Barack Obama held a moment of silence for the victims of the Seoul ferry disaster for roughly 30 seconds, and that's how they started up, or they kicked off their bilateral summit, by paying tribute or remembering those who perished in this very tragic accident. And there we see, I suppose, a very close alliance or very friendly relations between the two countries who have called each other sister and brother countries before. And we did see U.S. President Barack Obama expressing his condolences before he set off for this Asia tour, calling it heartbreaking. And of course, and that is how they begun their bilateral summit today as well.
Initially, we thought other subjects will take center stage, and it might be something on the sidelines, but it seems like they place emphasis and focus on, of course, the tragic event that led to a lot of loss of lives and led to a lot of changes being needed in terms of safety measures and response time here in South Korea. And of course, we are getting a lot of criticism and praise as well from around the world for our ability to deliver a lot of all-out search efforts with joint efforts between the government level, military, and of course civilian levels, and sometimes the civilian divers having much more experience to share and offer. And it is unfortunate, yes, but however, we will have to get over the hump and focus on the matter at hand. Right now, the bigger issue at the moment for us to tackle is, of course, North Korea, who did promise, or always they would like to make declarations before they take action about a possible fourth nuclear test, which will be the core subject of discussion, or subject that needs to be debated between the two sides, South Korea and U.S.
Right. For those of you just joining us, this is Arirang News live coverage of South Korea-U.S. Summit News Conference. President Barack Obama arrived in Seoul earlier this Friday afternoon on the second leg of his Asia tour following the one in Tokyo. Now, after this one, which is a 2-day-long visit, he will be flying off to Malaysia and the Philippines to wrap up his Asia tour. He met with Prime Minister Abe and had a little bit of what people have been calling sushi diplomacy in Tokyo. And after that, he is now in Seoul. And more than anything, I think President Barack Obama is putting a lot of emphasis in consoling, giving comfort to those families who have lost their loved ones or whose loved ones remain missing at this time in the Seoul ferry sinking last Wednesday morning. Of course, here on Arirang, we have been bringing you special reports, special coverages all day long on the Seoul ferry disaster. And even on this Friday, we continue our search and rescue efforts down off Korea's southwestern coast. And of course, we still cling on to that last bit of hope that there could be survivors. However, a lot of that hope has been glimmered or dimmed.
Right, it's diminishing by the hour, but of course we do not give up hope. We are clinging on to a possible miracle that could happen. Weather has been quite favorable in terms of the neap tides coming in to make sure the rescue operations are conducted a little bit smoothly without huge obstacles. And we did, of course, mention earlier that the rest of the world, they are eager and willing to help out in any way possible. And it looks like we have some developments on the venue. There are some members stepping up to the podium to possibly do some mic checks. And we will have the very significant event going on, being underway in a matter of minutes, I hope, perhaps seconds. There's been quite a long delay.
We did actually mention, but I'd like to say again that the two leaders, in fact, started off the bilateral summit by carrying out a moment of silence for those who perished in this ferry disaster off Korea's southwestern coast last Wednesday morning. President Obama reportedly expressed his deep sadness and condolences because so many young souls were lost this time around. Of course, more than 300 of the 400+ passengers on board this ill-fated ferry were high school students on their field trip to Jeju Island, and that is why I think President Barack Obama really expressed his deep sadness over that. They also, I believe, discussed the Trans-Pacific Partnership and how they would like to negotiate on further to talk about achieving a higher level of Trans-Pacific Partnership, an economic trade deal, I suppose, on top of this bilateral Korea-U.S. FTA. And they also discussed, I suppose, reconsidering the OPCON transfer date, right, the operational control from the U.S. Forces Korea to South Korea, which had been at the top of the two countries' agenda for months now, in fact.
Right, the always imminent, ever imminent threat is, of course, North Korea, ever unpredictable and always eager to display their military might or to be acknowledged as a nuclear power state, always making some disturbing progress in that department. And of course, we will be focused on the two leaders will be focused on discussing the subject and, of course, finding ways to approach North Korea. It's never an easy subject because sometimes they do respond to conversational methods. Sometimes they respond to some display of force, like the joint exercise that we have going on, which seem to evoke a lot of emotional response from North Korea, be it sending drones or threatening to conduct another nuclear test in North Korea.
Right. Of course, at the top of the agenda was, of course, North Korea, and the two leaders are said to have called for, or strongly called for, North Korea to stop any of its nuclear activities and, in fact, denuclearize, I suppose. What's very interesting is President Barack Obama is said to have given magnolia flowers, those are flowers, magnolia, for the Danwon High School students and teachers who are suffering this very traumatic loss, which is, of course, Danwon High School is where 300+ students were on board this ill-fated ferry, which sank off Korea's southwestern coast last Wednesday morning, and we have seen hundreds and hundreds of casualties of death and those missing there. And President Barack Obama, after holding a moment of silence with President Park Geun-hye, has delivered a magnolia flowers to be sent to Tanwon High School in Ansan, the suburb area of Seoul. What you're seeing on your screen is the venue of the Korea-U.S. Summit Joint News Conference in Cheongwade, the presidential office of South Korea. President Barack Obama arrived here earlier this Friday afternoon, and upon arrival, he did go to the War Memorial to pay his tribute and then visited the Gyeongbokgung Palace, which would be the first time for a U.S. president to visit a national treasure of South Korea's, and then went off to the presidential office of Cheongwade at around 4 p.m. Korea time, where he was welcomed by a welcoming ceremony. And then afterwards, the two presidents are said to have sat down for bilateral talks. Obviously, it was supposed to be an hour-long discussion, but the two leaders have lengthened, and they have been speaking to each other, to one another, for longer than that.
Right. One reason why, it's because it's a very emotional time here in Korea, and I'm sure during some of the conversations, knowing these two leaders, they are very emotionally attached to everyone around them, and I'm sure they had to take their time trying to get over the emotional grief at the moment. President Barack Obama, of course, first and foremost expressed his deep condolences, and they took a moment of silence to pay tribute to the victims of the tragic ferry incident. And that is one of the major reasons why the conversation behind closed doors is taking a little bit longer. It's been postponed quite a while, and I think we should be getting the two leaders at the podium any moment. The members of the press and all the delegates at the venue are growing restless as we speak. They, of course, understand the overall atmosphere of South Korea at the moment, and we do hope that the two leaders will be coming out soon.
Right. I think we're just moments away from the two leaders coming out to the podium to take on and to address the reporters. I believe each leader will have a statement, and then we'll be taking questions from the members of the press. And this entire procedure is scheduled to take about half an hour, but by the look of things, we don't know about that. It may take longer, or it could actually be on time. What we've experience so far with summit joint news conferences are that most of the time they never start on time, because the two leaders always seem to have a lot more to discuss than expected.
It's a good sign when it doesn't start on
that's
time.
correct.
Usually, if it starts early, it means they cannot resolve their differences, or they do not have much in common, or they just want to get over the next step, which is not exactly the best sign. So this is a positive development for South Korea and the U.S.
We keep seeing U.S. Deputy Trade Representative Wendy Cutler. Of course, she was one of those figures from the U.S. side who masterminded or planned and designed the Korea-U.S. FTA. So I'm thinking that the economic issues such as the TPP topped the agenda between the two leaders this time as well. And we, of course, saw U.S. Ambassador to South Korea Sung Kim and South Korea's Foreign Minister Yoon Byung-se, along with the presidential office's national security advisor there. And apparently, the two leaders, of course, as expected, strongly called for North Korea to denuclearize and to stop any nuclear activities that may be ongoing in the northern part of the Korean peninsula.
Now we see them approaching.
Right, we see President Park Geun-hye and President Obama
still holding some casual conversations at the moment.
Engaged in friendly talks, I believe, walking to the venue. This is not something that we see very often. So we are
One thing different from the
them.
past is that we've had presidents before, but this is the first president that can actually hold a face-to-face conversation without an interpreter. So that is also one of the reasons why the conversation took a little bit longer.
All right, it seems like the joint news conference is just about to begin, and let's go over to the venue.
지금부터 대한민국 박근혜 대통령과 미 합중국 버락 오바마 대통령의 공동 기자회견을 시작하겠습니다. 오늘 기자회견은 두 분 정상의 회담 결과 발표와 질의, 답변의 순으로 진행하겠습니다. 먼저 박근혜 대통령께서 회담 결과를 발표하시겠습니다.
오늘 한국을 방문하신
Yes,
오바마
I would like to
대통령을
sincerely welcome President Barack Obama for visiting Korea. And first of all, I would like to also
오바마 대통령님의 위로 말씀과
deliver say to you that Barack Obama has also expressed his deepest condolences to the victims and the families of the Seoul ferry disaster, and I would sincerely thank him for that. And he has visited Seoul, is the most visited city. This is Seoul for him, and this is what I've heard. And I believe that this attests to the deep affection that the United States shows to Korea, as well as for the development of Korea-U.S. alliance development. Recently, North Korea has also officially announced the possible conduct of nuclear tests. So we are experiencing a very grave situation. But President Obama was very clear in his message that we will not tolerate any types of provocations of North Korea. So he has also reaffirmed his commitment to do his best to deter North Korea, and we have also agreed to further consolidate the both ties of both countries. And the ties of both countries stand strong more than ever before. And the two leaders will also visit the U.S. Korea Forces Command tomorrow, and we will meet the U.S. soldiers in Korea. And the provocation of North Korea will bring a new type of pressure from the international society and community. And President and we have discussed about different measures as to how we can deter North Korea's provocations. What we would like to hope going forward is that North Korea makes the right choice to help its people. The President and we have also discussed that given the increasing nuclear threats of North Korea, we have also talked about the times and conditions of the transition of wartime operational control, and we have agreed that we can reconsider the time and the conditions of wartime operational control. And both leaders will also continue to strengthen the capabilities to deter North Korea, and we will also try to develop independently the Korean missile defense mechanism independently, so that we can be able to independently manage the missile defense system. So we have also agreed to strengthen the security dialogue at the high level. And at the latter half of this year, we will have a 2+2 defense ministers meeting between the two countries. And this meeting will be a very important venue to further discuss the security future of the Korean Peninsula. The President and will, based on these strong deterrents, will continue to work hard and to commit to lay the foundation for peaceful unification of the Korean Peninsula, and also to strengthen ties of both countries. And to this end, it is very important to see progress of denuclearization of North Korea. Both leaders, we believe that there is the advancement of the modernization of nuclearization of North Korea. And we have agreed to further strengthen and implement the denuclearization of North Korea. To this regard, we look forward to working together to draw the common participation of the international community, and North Korea must know that if it continues the current status quo or the current stance, it is doomed to fail. In order to build the peace on the Korean Peninsula, I also talked to President Obama about my Dresden proposal. In 2012, as President Obama said, the peoples of North and South Korea should become a sovereign people and free people. And given the history of the world, the confrontations tensions and the mistrusts between the two countries and the barriers of the cultures of both countries should be and will be dismantled. And in this process, I believe that the message of hope should continue going forward, and in particular, humanitarian aid and to regain homogeneity of the inter-Koreans are essential. The peaceful reunification of Korea will offer new economic opportunities to Korea as well as our allies, and it will serve as an important cornerstone to strengthen the peace on the Korean Peninsula as well as Northeast Asia. Of course, North Korea has rightly rejected the Dresden proposal. However, such proposal will open the minimum chance for North Koreans to live well and to regain homogeneity of the inter-Koreans. And that is why it is important to stick to the principle and implement this initiative. The President and I have also shared our concern about the threats and the security threats in the Northeast Asia, and we have agreed to seek important measures and proactive measures to address this. And I believe that the U.S.'s rebalancing policy of rebalancing to Asia is also contributing to build peace in Northeast Asia, and I believe that the rebalancing to Asia policy is a very important reflection of the U.S.'s commitment to Northeast Asia. So Korea will also continue to work together with, and has worked together with the U.S. to address the global concerns. Korea and the U.S. have also worked on development assistance activities in the African regions. We are also working together to combat climate change issues and to address concerns or issues regarding nuclear security. And we will continue to work in this regard. And another important axis of our alliance of cooperation is in terms of culture and economy. We have worked closely in these areas, and we will continue to work in these areas going forward. In particular, Korea-U.S. alliance, together with U.S.-Korea defense agreement, are very important pillars of the bilateral partnerships, and we believe that we need to expand these areas. So following the Korea-U.S. FTA, we will also try to look for potential discussions or partnerships that can be sought in the areas of TPP, and we will lead close discussions regarding the Trans-Pacific Partnership. The energy leaders and energy businesses of both countries have also strengthened their ties in the development of shale gas and so forth. And the leaders in the IT sector, in the aerospatial sector, have also conducted joint studies to expand the U.S.-Korea partnership into a new level. So in the 60 years' time, we have actually seen the return of a very precious royal seals to Korea today, and I believe all of these efforts will enrich the bilateral relations of both Korea and the United States. Korea and U.S. alliance has built a strong confidence and trust for the past 60 years, and we will continue to effectively respond to global issues, and we will also become the pillar and strengthen our relationship to become the pillar of the security of Northeast Asian region. So I would like to once again welcome the visit of President Obama, and I wish you good luck for the rest of your tour.
Well, thank you, President Park, for your kind words and warm welcome. I want to thank the people of South Korea for your enduring friendship and unfailing hospitality. As I said earlier, I know my visit comes at a time of great sorrow for your nation. And again, on behalf of all Americans, I want to express our deepest condolences, our edo, to all the families who lost loved ones on the ferry Seoul. So many were young students with their entire lives ahead of them. I'm a father of 2 daughters of the same age or close to the same age as those who were lost, and so I can only imagine what the parents are going through at this point, the incredible heartache. I've brought with me on this trip, in addition to the flag that I mentioned earlier, a magnolia tree from the south lawn of the White House. These magnolia trees have stood for more than a century, and they represent in our country beauty and with every spring renewal. The same qualities embodied by all those students. So during my visit, this tree will be presented to Danwon High School as a reminder of their beautiful lives and the friendship between our nations. And going forward, the United States will continue to offer whatever support we can provide as you respond to this tragedy. These difficult days remind us that whatever the challenges, our 2 nations stand together. Our alliance remains a linchpin of security in Asia. Our solidarity is bolstered by the courage of our service members, both Korean and American, who safeguard this nation. America's commitment to the South Korean people will never waver. And President Park, I want to thank you for your strong personal commitment to our alliance. I was honored to welcome you to Washington for your first foreign trip as president, and we've worked closely ever since. In our discussions today, we agreed to continue to modernize our alliance, including enhancing the interoperability of our missile defense systems. At the same time, President Park recommended, and I agreed, that given the evolving security environment in the region, including the enduring North Korean nuclear and missile threat, we can reconsider the 2015 timeline for transferring operational control for our alliance. Together, we'll ensure that our alliance remains fully prepared for our mission. With regard to North Korea, the United States and South Korea stand shoulder to shoulder, both in the face of Pyongyang's provocations and in our refusal to accept a nuclear North Korea. Threats will get North Korea nothing other than greater isolation. And we're united on the steps Pyongyang needs to take, including abandoning their nuclear weapons and ballistic weapons programs and living up to their international obligations. Of course, we're also deeply concerned about the suffering of the North Korean people. And the United States and South Korea are working together to advance accountability for the serious human rights violations being committed by the North. I mentioned to President Park that the United States supports the Korean people's desire for unification, and I share President Park's vision, as you outlined, Madam President, in your recent speech in Dresden, of a unified Korea that's free from the fear of war and nuclear weapons. It's a vision of a unified Korea where people throughout this peninsula enjoy the political and economic freedoms that exist here in the South. Beyond this peninsula, our alliance is increasingly a global one. We're grateful for South Korea's partnership, from typhoon relief in the Philippines to humanitarian efforts in Syria. As Madam President mentioned, we're working closely on new clean energy technologies to address climate change, and with the international community on an ambitious new climate agreement. Around the globe, we're leaders in development because we want more people to experience the kind of incredible growth and progress that South Korea shows is possible. And finally, we agreed to continue expanding our extraordinary economic ties. Since we signed our free trade agreement 2 years ago, our overall bilateral trade has gone up. The United States is exporting more to South Korea, and South Korea is exporting more to the United States, which supports good jobs in both countries. Today, President Park and I discussed how we can make sure that we implement KORUS fully, which would also help ensure that South Korea can eventually meet the high standards of the Trans-Pacific Partnership. So, President Park, thank you again for your partnership and for all that you've done to keep our alliance strong. I'm looking forward to our working dinner tonight. Time and again, we've seen how much our people can accomplish together, not just for our own countries, but for the security and prosperity of the people around the world. And we very much appreciate your leadership on that project. 감사합니다.
네, 지금부터는 기자분들의 질문을 받겠습니다. 한국 측 기자의 질문부터 받겠습니다. 질문하실 분은 지명이 되면 소속과 성명을 밝힌 뒤에 질문해 주시기 바랍니다.